Hello everyone, this is Rabbi Avram Wagshal. I'm making this video in which I'm going to try to introduce you briefly to the concepts known as Seder Hishtalshelus, the order of descent of the world that we know as it has descended from the essence of God Himself. The purpose of this video is not to give an in-depth treatment. Actually, I have a couple of friends that I'm studying with the Sefer Hatanya, the first work of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, in which a lot of these terms come up and they're curious about them, and so I'm trying to give them a brief overview. I'm definitely aware, and I make a disclaimer, there are hundreds of volumes of Chassidus and Kabbalah that treat each of these ideas in depth, and I'm by no means an expert. I hope to at least get the main terms correct based on, shiurim and learning that I've done from my teachers, and I hope this is a helpful overview. And, disclaimer, I'm no expert, and I'm just trying to add a little clarity as an overview. Okay, so when we talk about creation, okay, it's the way Chassidus explains that we have a level one. We have Atzmus, the very essence of God Himself. This of course is unknowable, infinite, unchangeable, right? As we believe about Hashem. Now there's the concept of Kaidim Shenivra Ha'olam Hayahu Ushmei Bilvad. Before the world was created, there was He and His name alone. I've sort of indicated that with these little radiance lines over here, right? That God's name, right? The Or Ein Sof, the unlimited light of God, right? Is existing before the world was created, and the reason why there is this light is because there is this concept in Chassidus as Alois Haratzain, that it is a will, desire for a world to be created arose before God began the creative process, and therefore the light of God is already revealed, but it's as if, so to speak, like God's name, which is one with Him, and is a reflection of Him, but there's nothing else outside of Him at that point. Now, interestingly, Chassidus makes a point that before creation, when there's Alei Saratzain, the world does exist within God at that point, because God is perfect. As soon as He desires something, it happens. But the world is totally contained and nullified within the Creator's, so to speak, thought. Of course, we're talking about Hashem. There is no thought or desire. These are human terms that help us, that are metaphors to help us understand God. So, what does God do? There is the concept of Tzimtzum. Okay, let's type that name. Tzimtzum is what Kabbalah refers to as the contraction, right? The contraction of God's light in order for there to be a world. He removes Himself from that world. He removes that revelation, so that now there can be a makom pani, an empty space. All right, so I've drawn that line. God has removed Himself, so to speak, and made an empty space. But I've made shaded rays, because Chassidus explains Tzimtzum einu kipshutei, that Tzimtzum is not literal. God is still here. There's no place that's empty of God. And it's just in our perception that we perceive that there is a lack of revelation of God, and therefore that makes it possible for us to have free choice, because we feel as if there's nobody watching us, there's nobody compelling us. But in reality, God is everywhere. Now, within that makom pani, that empty space, Chassidus talks about the idea of a kav, right? A ray, a revelation of limited divine energy that God revealed to create, to map out the world the energy of creation of the world. That kav, that line that I sort of drew over here, like a line of God's revelation, is a limited revelation compared to the infiniteness of God Himself. He's defined what exactly He's going to reveal in order to create the world as we know it. Now, in the actual Hishtalshelus, we can divide that into, we would say, maybe 6 parts. We would say, again, this is just very, very broad over here. I would say that we're talking about part 1 would be before the Tzimtzum, Tzimtzum, before God contracted His revelation, right? Then there's after the Tzimtzum. Now, after the Tzimtzum, part 2 would be what's called Adam Kadmon, the primordial man, or that's very fancy terminology, but basically a level of godly revelation where the whole entire blueprint of creation is contained within one idea, one vision, one broad vision. And I've drawn that by a vision of a head sort of thinking of a grand vision of what it's going to be. Chassidus and Kabbalah delve into this very mysterious level at length, and it's not so much the focus if we want to talk about, but we'll get back to it in a minute. Then there are the four worlds of Atzilus, Bria, Yitzira, Asiya. Okay, these Asiya is our world itself. These different stages are what we call Seder Hishtalshelus. Now let's zoom in a little bit on Adam Kadmon for a bit. So Adam Kadmon in this pre-world state where everything is all contained in a big idea, big picture. So in level number 1, in level number 1, in this thought process, there's idea of 10 in one vessel, that God created 10 sefiros, which we're going to get back to in a moment. What are these 10 sefiros? 10 tools for creation, and they're contained all together. They're not distinct entities yet. Okay, then we get a more advanced state where there are 10 separate lights without integration, meaning without cooperation with each other, and we have what's called Olam HaTohu, the world of chaos, the shattering of the vessels. Imagine a very kind person and a very disciplined person trying to cooperate together, and they can't find a common language, and they just get nothing done. This is the idea of Olam HaTohu, a world of chaos that existed before God began the visible Seder Hishtalshelus. And then we go to Olam HaTikun, which is 10 sefiros, 10 specific powers revealed in a way that are integrated within each other. So in other words, that very kind person will cooperate with the disciplined person, and there can be a synthesis of the different powers in which God uses to create the world to work together. That's the world as we know it. That's our goal, is to have a synthesis within creation and harmony, and specifically through the fulfillment of Torah and Mitzvahs. That's not really in the world of Adam Kadmon. I just drew it over there to put that in perspective. And again, the idea of Adam Kadmon is that big picture version of everything in a spiritual big blueprint stage at that point. Okay, and then the Adam Kadmon is really talked about as the end of the Ein Sof, the end of the infinite revelation of God, because from then on becomes actual worlds that are more revealed and distinct. Now, the first of those worlds is called Olam HaAtzilus. Now, it's a world of complete unity and God consciousness with our Creator. That there's nothing independent independent existence in this world. Okay, this is a person, a soul from Atzilus would be a person that's totally one and dedicated to God, that has no other desires but to do what God wants. Then there's Olam Abriya, the world of intellectual consciousness, the the awareness of your own intellect to understand God, so you're understanding yourself, the creations, the angels and the souls of Olam Abriya. They understand godliness, but they also feel themselves as entities that understand godliness. So they're a little bit more removed from being nullified to God. Then there's a world of Yitzira, emotional consciousness, understand, feelings of love and an awe for God. There are many, malachim that are constantly praising God, many souls that have this great connection with God and love of God. And finally, the world of Asiya, the world of action, where it's just, there's no revealed emotional or intellectual comprehension of God in our world. It's just a world where actions happen, and we somehow hope to figure out how those are connected, how everything makes sense. And with the Creator, we could sometimes forget that we have a Creator here. Now, the thing to remember is that all of these four are like one big Beis Hamikdash, one big temple, where this is God's house, God's dwelling place. The bottom floor is our world, and the other three worlds above us are part of what leads up to our world. Each world, just like the Beis Hamikdash, has a Kodesh HaKadoshim, a Holy of Holies, and that Holy of Holies is the center in which God's will, God's revelation is manifest in that world to create that world. And I made these radiation lines over here, radiance, where from that Holy of Holies, God is God's energy is radiating out to create the souls and the angels in that particular world. Now, what is this Holy of Holies? Okay, and this is really one major topic in Chassidus and Kabbalah, is the idea of the 10 sefiros. Notice that we have the same model of the 10 sefiros, the 10 powers within each world, because there isn't just the idea of one set of 10 sefiros for the whole universe. Every stage of creation uses these 10 sefiros, and the 10 sefiros are manifest themselves differently depending on the stage of creation, meaning more intellectually in the world of Bria, more nullified to God in the world of Atzilus, etc. So what are these 10 sefiros that God used? Right, since we have an infinite God, God used 10 sefiros, 10 soul powers, 10 spiritual tools to create our world. And to use those in each stage of creation. And when we say that an Adam is Adam Elyon, is similar, is created in the image of God, it's because within us, our psyche operates with these 10 soul powers. So through understanding how we operate, we can understand a little bit about the tools that God made. So let's talk about a person over here. A person starts off at the beginning with Ratzain, with will. Now, your will, right? That's your ultimate. What you want. However, if you think about it, it's not really the ultimate, because your will is generated by Tainug, what gives you pleasure. That is the highest. Chassidus and Kabbalah call it Keser, the crown. That's above your head. It's outside of your intellectual powers of contemplation. You don't even understand what drives you. You just have a pleasure in something, and therefore it generates a will for that which will get you that thing, and that will generate your thought process, and your intellectual comprehension will be all geared towards achieving those aims. Now, the intellectual process, intellectual powers, has three main parts, three main powers: Chachma, Bina, and Das. For some reason, in common translations, those are wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Chachma, I've heard it translated more accurately as creativity, the ability to create. Koyach ma, the ability to conceive of a new idea. That's the beginning. Then Bina, understanding. It's when you have a new idea, you break it down, you ask questions. Well, how will this idea work with other known ideas? What happens if this comes up, that comes up, and you break apart the idea down to very specific components, so it's clear. And then comes Das. Das is not I don't know how the 7 got in there. I'm sorry, it's a typo. Das is the ability to focus and bond and be one with your knowledge and your ideas and focus on them until it becomes part of you. If I woke you up in the middle of the night and I said to you, quickly, what's 1 plus 1? Or who created the world? Chances are this knowledge is so one with you, that's part of you, you would be able to tell me the answer. Okay? Now, from the intellectual parts, the intellectual powers in a healthy person, you will hopefully develop emotions. The way you think will inform your feelings. And we have over here 6 emotions, so that so far, by the way, is 9 if you're counting, and the 10th one we'll discuss in a minute. So Chesed would be our first one, the right arm, kindness, giving tzedakah. I'm aware that this would be, if we're looking at it, this would be the left. I just drew this for kids so that they would understand this is the right side. Chesed, kindness, which motivates acts of giving. That's motivated by the way you think. If you think something is wonderful and worthy, then you want to show kindness and give towards it. Then there's the opposite side, the left side, givura, self-control, limiting, discipline, knowing when to stop. And then there's tiferes. Tiferes would be a synthesis of the two, where you would help somebody, right? Even though if they're undeserving, you would help them anyway. Then there would be netzach. Netzach would be on the right side, on the chesed, kindness side, on the giving side, the extroverted side, where you go for the victory, to persevere. I made a picture of someone, a foot climbing a mountain over here. Chesed would be also the right leg, symbolically of our body. Then there would be hod. Hod would be humility, or knowing when to wait, when to hold back to achieve one's aims, not to give up, but to curb, literally like a curb. Not run across the street. Wait till the car passes before you get to your goal. Then there's Yisoid, bonding with others. Right, this is sort of a synthesis between perseverance and humility, where you want to go out, but you also recognize that there's an other, and you restrain yourself, and you make that personal connection. Finally, all of these levels are taking place within a person. But then there's Malchus, kingship, which is the idea of communicating one's desires, one's feelings out of you, which is why Chassidus talks about Malchus as speech, as the power of speech. A king rules through his speech. So this is a quick crash course to these 10 tools that God created, that are these 10 tools are the center, right, of each world of Seder Hishtalshelus, right? Obviously, our 10 tools in a human being, right, manifest themselves in the way our bodies are set up, the way our psychology works. However, the 10 tools of each world, right, are more spiritual and more more godly, at different levels. But that being said, right? They're one connected to the other. So if you have kedusha, if you have the kodesh hakadoshim, the center of our world of asiya, and you're doing a mitzvah which is connected to, if you're giving tzedakah over here, which is connected to God's kindness, that chesed that you're doing over here connects you to the chesed of the world of Yetzirah, which connects to the world of Bria, which connects you to the world of Atzilus, which is fulfilling ultimately God's original big picture that He wanted to have a world where these mitzvahs, these ideas will be fulfilled, which even precedes the Tzimtzum, touches the essence of God Himself, what God Himself wanted to happen by creation. And this is how every single mitzvah that we do is like connected like a chain, one to the other. That's why Hishtalshelus is symbolized by a chain where one level is linked to the other. And this is the idea of Seder Hishtalshelus in brief, even though it took 20 minutes or more to explain it. I hope this was helpful. And Hatzlacha Rabbah in your learning and your study of Chassidus. One practical takeaway, maybe, if you will, is you can sort of look at Seder Hishtalshelus as a way to learn about ourselves. So you can say that the Tzimtzum, before the Tzimtzum, reminds us of one being with ourselves, and then if we want to communicate with others, we need to put ourselves on the side and make space for another. And then we need to have a big picture. We need to think before we act. We need to know how, what our plans are. The world of Atzilus might teach us practically that, we have to be one with our mission, whether we understand it, whether we feel it or not. It's above us. It's bigger than us. Hashem is bigger than us, and we totally devote ourselves to Him. Now, the world of Bria is when you understand and you connect with God in an intellectual way. Right? When you do a mitzvah and you're understanding what you're doing, and you're learning a subject in Torah and understanding it, you're engaged in a way in the experience of Bria. Yetzirah, you're emotionally connected to the act of doing a mitzvah or whatever you're doing for to serve Hashem, and that's another beautiful thing. And then finally, Asiya, there's the action, the practical action that you're doing. So you see over here that it's possible to have all these four levels within your everyday experience, based on your mood, based on your level of consciousness at a particular moment, which that's really cool to think about. So Hatzlacha Rabbah in your studies, and remember, this is just a brief crash course, and I hope it was helpful and not confusing.